officially get started. So my name is Terry Gleason, or Teresa Gleason, if you've seen on some of my posts as well. I am a health and wellness coach, as well as just a fanatic about nutrition. It's just, I don't know, sometimes when you try to explain like the topics that you're interested in, it's hard to explain why. It just kind of like a topic that I've always been pretty interested in. So when I fell into this world of plant-based nutrition, it really just kind of sparked an interest and a passion of wanting to learn more myself, and also to present other people with the information that I have learned, as well, that has helped me be as healthy as I possibly can. Probably about like a month and a half ago at this point, I went to a presentation at the All Saints Episcopal Church in Scotch Plains. And that's where there was a presentation. Jean Marie, which I see her mom, I don't know if Jean Marie's on, but I see Marianne. She told this beautiful, compelling story about how she used plant-based nutrition to reverse an autoimmune disease. So through that event, I got hooked up with Susanna Cates, who is the pastor of All Saints Episcopal Church. And we kind of hooked up to kind of do this presentation for the month of April. They were trying to do something every month. I think last month got canceled because of current situations. So I'm doing my best to at least kind of keep it going through the month of April. So let me hand it over to Susanna really quick so she can kind of give an introduction of this wellness initiative that they're trying to do at the church and within the town. So Susanna, if you want to just say a few words real quick.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, so I've been trying to start up a community wellness initiative, not necessarily as a religious aspect of the church that I serve, but just for the community. For those of you who know Scotch Plains, we're right in the center of town, and I thought it was a really appealing space to start bringing some wellness programs into Scotch Plains and Fanwood and the surrounding community. So I started putting together some programs, and at a completely separate meeting, I met Jean Marie, who Terry mentioned, and her mother, Marianne, who's joining us today. And as Terry said, told just a really riveting story about her journey into plant-based nutrition and how that really changed her life and her health. And I decided when they had their presentation on February 22nd, I remember, at All Saints as part of our community wellness center, I started going plant-based too. It was so exciting, and the food was actually really good. And it turns out I couldn't have picked a better time, because the first thing, other than toilet paper, one of the first things to run out at the grocery stores when this whole crisis started was meat and dairy. And I'm like, too bad for you guys. I got beans and pasta. I'm good to go. And the vegetables have stayed steady and all this other stuff. So I've been plant-based since then. I will say I tried it out as a Lenten discipline. Yesterday, just for kicks, I had pizza with cheese on it, and I was sick the rest of the day. And I thought, you know what? It's not worth it. I feel great. I'm spending a lot less money on food than I used to, and I'm having a really good time learning how to cook. And so I know that Terry is really deeply invested in her life as a vegan, as a plant-based cook and teacher. And so I'm so delighted that she wants to keep this momentum going as part of the Community Wellness Center and as part of her own life and teaching. So that's really all I have to say. I'm so glad that you're doing this, and we're going to keep it up. If anyone else in this format is interested in presenting or has some really cool recipes to share, I've been doing a Wednesday night cooking class on Facebook Live, and it's been all plant-based, but I don't think anyone has really noticed. I think people are just excited to get good, inexpensive, relatively easy recipes. Nobody said, hey, wait a minute, these are all vegan. Everybody's like, wow, that looks really good, and they're going home and cooking. So this is a great format for that, and I appreciate that. So anything more that you can teach us, Terry, I'm delighted to learn. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so let the presentation begin. Okay, so this is, let me just do my presentation mode. Okay, so this is just a very basic, informative presentation. I'm not here to lecture anybody on what they should be eating or shouldn't be eating, or to tell you what you should be eating or shouldn't be eating. I'm not a doctor to diagnose any issues that you have. So this is really just to be informative and just to spark some curiosity for you to maybe look up some more resources on your own. So First question is basically why, wait, so the answer already. Why is nutrition even important? So basically nutrition, what we eat on an everyday basis, does have an impact on our overall health. And I understand that, like, we all know that one guy who lived to be like 105 and smoked a pack a day and probably ate the worst diet in the world and didn't exercise and had a lovely life. And we also, unfortunately, on the flip side, probably know some people who just try to do everything right health-wise, and may have a long string of unfortunate health conditions. So those are outliers, though. We definitely know those people, and although those stories are interesting, it's not the norm. So for most of us, what we eat on a daily basis is going to impact our health. So there's the answer. Nutrition is important because what we eat on a daily basis greatly impacts our health. This is a really cool, quick video, and it kind of just goes through the last decade or so, and you'll see when I start it, it's a little bit less colorful, and it's basically the rates of obesity in our country. So let me start this really quick. So it's very white, light blue, and as you can see, the year that changes at the top of the screen, more states have higher rates of obesity. So the 90s, and you can even see, like, when new years pop up, there needs to be new colors. So we'll get some orange in there soon. 96, 97, so they have to add a new color. Okay, 99, 2000s. And it's interesting to see where the rates are higher too in the United States. It's not evenly dispersed. Okay, I think it ends at like 2010, so just a couple more years. New Jersey's trying to hang on there. Okay, so 2010, this particular video ends. Obviously, there's more data after that, but you can kind of just get a snapshot of where we used to be not too long ago and where we are today. So obesity, the obesity rate is definitely rising in the United States, as well as chronic diseases. And it just so happens obesity is linked to higher cases of chronic diseases. And then the 10 leading causes of death. And I'm really sorry to start off so morbid, but it's really just to show how important nutrition is. So this screen might be a little hard to read, because I'm sure we all know someone who may have lost their life to one of these chronic diseases or situations. But if you look at the ones in green, heart disease, some cancers, strokes, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and kidney disease, they have a really strong linkage to nutrition. So if they do have a very strong linkage to nutrition, obviously what we eat on a regular basis is super important, especially if these are our leading causes of death in the United States. So genetics versus lifestyle. I definitely, in my school years, college days, kind of learned this school of thought that, you're just you get what you get and you don't get upset. The genetics that you're born with, you can't do anything about. And unfortunately, if heart disease runs in your family, then you more likely, you can't, if diabetes runs in your family, you're more likely to have diabetes. But I learned over the last couple years that lifestyle has a huge impact on our health. So the World Health Organization states that the major causes of chronic diseases are known, and if these risk factors were eliminated, at least 80% of all heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes would be prevented, and over 40% of cancer would be prevented. So when I first heard that, I was kind of mad at first. I'm like, have you why didn't I know that I could have, I don't know, all these people could have kind of saved their lives when they think maybe, or it's more accepted to think that a chronic disease is just what it is and you really can't do anything about it. But in fact, we can do something about it. And it definitely is how we live our life, and diet is a big part of how we live our life. Okay, so I've been to countless presentations and lectures and workshops over the last 2 years, led by experts in the plant-based nutrition field. And this slide always seems, or this picture always seems to be in there somewhere. So if you look at this picture, it's two doctors mopping up a floor because a sink is being overfilled. And this kind of is a picture of our current medical system, unfortunately. We have doctors who are just so overwhelmed with patients, and patients with these chronic illnesses that aren't going away no matter how many medications we give them and how many surgeries they go through. So if this was happening in your house, so if you had your kitchen sink and the faucet was running and the sink was overflowing on the floor and there was water everywhere, what would be the most logical thing to do? And I know you're all so smart and you're all on mute, so I can't hear your answer, but I'm assuming you would say, turn off the faucet. That would be the most practical thing to do, and probably the cheapest thing to do. Instead of calling a plumber, you would turn off the faucet. So there have been 4 lifestyle factors or behaviors that can turn the faucet off, so we don't have to put such a strain on our medical system. The 4 lifestyle factors are not smoking tobacco, and if you are smoking, to obviously quit. And I know that's a whole kind of complicated issue, but just not smoking tobacco in general is obviously a healthy behavior. Getting enough physical activity, and that can be anything from actually going to the gym and working out, or going for walks, or just really being active, physically active during the day. Obesity, having a BMI under 30, and BMI means body mass index. And it's not the only snapshot of your health, but it is kind of interesting to see what your BMI index is. We want to get that under 30. And obviously diet, which is the main part of this presentation today. So those are the 4 lifestyle factors that if we keep them in check as best as possible, we will have that 80% chance less of chronic diseases. So what is a whole food plant-based diet? So a good definition is a diet that maximizes whole, minimally processed plant foods and minimizes or avoids processed and animal foods. So it's pretty simple when you think about it. I mean, look at all this delicious food in the photo. We want to maximize whole, minimally processed plant foods. And a good way to think about that is like, you take an apple, and an apple is a whole plant food. You literally just pick it from the tree. It's hasn't really been processed at all. And then maybe make that apple into applesauce. So applesauce are still relatively healthy as long as there's not too much sugar added or anything like that, but just not the whole food. Probably maybe lost some fiber, maybe lost some water. And then maybe take that applesauce and turn it into apple juice. And that's when you're getting into more processed foods. And yes, apple juice sounds healthy because it's apples, it's from a plant, but it's not the whole plant. So what I really want to stress with plant-based nutrition is we want to focus on the whole food. Not that processed foods don't have any place in a healthy diet, they can, but we want to maximize whole, minimally processed foods. A question came to me by email, the difference, if I could just make sure I point out the difference between vegan and plant-based. So basically, vegan is defined by what you don't eat. Vegans don't eat any animal products, mostly due to ethical reasons. And I have no problem claiming I'm definitely a vegan. I started out more about the nutrition part, but it definitely, for me, kind of blended together a little bit. So I have no problem using the word vegan. And a whole food plant-based diet is basically defined by what you do eat. So again, vegan, we don't eat any animal products, but it doesn't really say what you can eat. I mean, French fries are vegan, Oreos are vegan. I wish I didn't know that, but I do. There's a lot of things that are vegan out there that aren't necessarily health promoting or healthy for us. But a whole food plant-based diet is defined what we want to eat, and we want to eat whole, minimally processed plant foods. So there's also a lot of like food guides out there as well. I just picked this one because I love the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, PCRM. It's a great resource that I've learned a lot from. So this is like the easiest snapshot of what a healthy diet can look like. So some of us might get excited about looking at this because it's so colorful and beautiful. And some of us might say, oh my gosh, it's so plain. There's nothing like, what do you even eat? So let me tell you. So I don't know how accurate this is. I'm really claiming that all my information is accurate and credible, but I just Googled like, how many different types of edible fruits are there? And this number popped up. So whether it's exactly 2,000 or in the ballpark, basically there are lots of variety of fruit to eat. I was definitely a bananas, an orange, and apple kind of girl growing up. And now I'm like eating, I had a kiwi this morning. And I'm like, when have I ever like went to the store and bought a kiwi and chopped it up and eat it? Not until I understood the benefits of whole fruits. So kind of really exciting when you open your eyes to a lot of different types of fruits out there. There's so many and they're so beautiful and colorful. All right, legumes. So this includes peas, lentils, and lentils you have red, green, French, chickpeas, beans, black, white, kidney. So there's lots of different variety of legumes out there as well. Grains, whole wheat, quinoa, barley, farro, oats, millet, buckwheat, corn, brown rice. There's so many types of grains out there. And again, this is another kind of category where I was like, I used to just eat pasta, or I just used to eat white rice. It's kind of fun to experiment with barley and farro and oats and quinoa that I used to call quinoa because I didn't know how to pronounce it. But now it's a staple in my pantry. So it's kind of fun to experiment with these things and see how you can just get a better variety in there. All right, and the last group was vegetables. So pretty self-explanatory, but leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, root vegetables, squashes. So lots and lots of variety. So you can see how this slide really filled up. There is one group of plant foods that's not on here, and I think it's because you only really need them in a small amount, and that's nuts and seeds. So nuts and seeds are very healthy, but you really don't need much of them because they're very calorie dense, but they're still part of very plant healthy diet. So there you go. All right, so let's talk about the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet. So these are just a snapshot, and each one of these benefits could probably have a 2-hour presentation in and of themselves, but I'll just try to quickly go through them. We saw earlier that a whole food plant-based diet can prevent, treat, or reverse some of our leading causes of diseases, including heart disease, which is our #1 killer in the United States, unfortunately, type 2 diabetes, and high blood pressure. They're very anti-inflammatory. So I know that's like a key word with marketing is, you know, anti-inflammatory foods, and all plant foods are very anti-inflammatory. They're good for the environment and animals. So obviously if we're not eating animals, we can't hurt them or kill them. So that's obviously a pro of a plant-based diet. And environmentally, this was a piece of the plant-based diet that I learned afterwards, but it is more environmentally friendly with the resources that we have on this earth to move toward a more plant-based diet. They're very low in saturated fat, sodium, they're free of cholesterol, they're rich in fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, so all this wonderful stuff. They can reduce your body weight, and that's mostly due to the fact that plant-based foods are less calorie dense, and I'll talk about that what that means in a second. But also don't get worried if you are someone who may be interested in plant-based nutrition but doesn't want to lose weight. Maybe you're an athlete, maybe you're a bodybuilder. It's really just how much you're eating and the calorie content of what you're eating. So they can reduce body weight, but don't be turned off if that's not your goal. Like maybe you don't want to lose weight. It's really just the amount of calories you're eating. And then the last one, it does not require calorie counting or regularly fighting against hunger. That was the one that got me. I haven't really told my story of really why I'm into nutrition, but it is linked to being in like diet culture. And I get very, very angry about how many years I've lost worrying about the amount of calories or carbs or protein content or weighing food or just, you know, just making nutrition so much more complicated than it needs to be. So if anyone out there is really wanting to free themselves of being overwhelmed with this kind of like calorie counting, plant-based diet can be pretty freeing in that regard. So when I mentioned calorie density, this is a great slide that kind of pictures different categories of food and how they might look like in your stomach. So our stomachs can hold about 4 cups of food, roughly. So if you think of like 400 calories from oil, it's not going to fill your stomach very much. If you think of 400 calories from cheese, a little bit more dense, but not that much. 400 calories from animal products, make you feel a little bit more full. When you get into beans and grains and potatoes, and especially fruits and vegetables, they just have so much water and fiber that they're going to fill you up a lot quicker without all the baggage of more unhealthy and processed foods. So I thought that was a really cool slide to add in there as well. All right, so what about plant-based processed foods? Marketing is getting super, super smart these days. I mean, I walk into ShopRite and I see, which I like in a sense, but at the same time, it gets very confusing because I'll see like, I don't know, a bag of just like chips or something, and like maybe lentil chips, and they're plant-based. They're technically plant-based, but they're not the whole food. So it might be like pea powder or bean powder, and then it's fried in oil, and then it's a chip. So it's not the healthiest thing, although it's plant-based, it's not the healthiest thing to eat. So plant-based fragments are things like sugar and oil and refined flours, and plant-based processed foods are things like potato chips, fruit juices, crackers, etc. Obviously, there is a reason to make foods like that. They does enhance their addictive nature. They have a longer shelf life. They have a visual appeal. We've heard the, I think what is it, Pringles, that has once you pop, the fun don't stop. And that's very true. It's very hard to stop eating something that's very salty and very fatty. It's not just somebody having less self-control than the next person. It's kind of like a natural reaction to an unnatural stimulus. So, all right, so animal-based foods. So basically things that come from an animal. Dairy, eggs, fish, seafood, and meat are animal-based foods. So I personally am, I consider myself a plant-based vegan. So I don't eat any of these animal-based foods. You can still be plant-based and plant-forward or maximize your plant-based foods, and you can still eat these to your degree, whatever you think of in moderation. So I don't want anyone to think like, all right, I'm not going plant-based because then I'm never going to be able to have dairy or eggs or fish or seafood or meat again. That's really your personal choice if you choose to include these things. The point of this is just to maybe just inform you that they aren't the healthiest choices. So I think another concern about plant-based nutrition is just certain individual nutrients. So I'm not a registered dietitian, so I don't want to get too much on specific nutrients. But in general, from what I learned, all the things that we think that we need from animal products are better served in plants. So there's virtually no nutrients in animal-based foods that are not better provided in plants. And that was a quote from T. Colin Campbell, and he is the author of the China study, which is a fantastic resource. So, so rest assured you won't be protein deficient as long as you're eating a variety of plant-based foods, or deficient in calcium or iron or the omega-3s. They're all in plants, which was hard for me to understand, but I have an app called MyFitnessPal. Just sometimes I just want to kind of put together a meal or menu and just kind of prove that plant-based meals and foods have enough of what people might be concerned that they might be deficient in. So if you are stranded on a deserted island and all you could eat was broccoli, which for some people would be like paradise. If you ate 2,000 calories worth of broccoli, which I think came out to about 65 cups or so, like 60 cups. There we go, 60 cups. 2,000 calories worth of broccoli, raw broccoli, would give you 169.2 grams of protein that day. So just to kind of give you a snapshot that there is enough protein in plant-based foods, especially if we eat a variety of them. So more isn't better, better is better, as you can see from my laundry room. Another question through email came about concerns about soy. So these are just this is just some information that I found, and I believe I got this at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine website. So soy products include soybeans, also called edamame, and any other items made from soybeans, including soy milk, tofu, tempeh, miso, and there are some plant-based meats and dairy substitutes on the market that are soy-based. So just some facts that I found on the PCRM website is epidemiological studies have found that soy protein may reduce the risk for some cancers, including breast, colon, and prostate. Soy products from soy affect testosterone level, they do not affect testosterone levels in men. Just want to make sure I clearly say that. And clinical studies show that soy products do not cause hypothyroidism. So I know there are some concerns of like, I think it actually was the last presentation at the Episcopal Church. Somebody mentioned that they heard that soy causes man boobs. And although most of us giggled, it is a current myth that soy can mess with men's testosterone levels. So I can assure you that they do not. The last little bullet point here says, I just wanted to mention to try to limit or avoid soy protein isolate. Again, kind of going with the theme of whole food, plant-based nutrition. When we get to isolating the protein out of soy and making it into maybe like a burger, that's when it can kind of get to a form where it's not the most health promoting. So there are some like plant-based burgers on the market these days that as a vegan, I'm like, yeah, great, I love them. But as a health standpoint, they aren't the healthiest things to eat because they're so processed. Somebody also, actually a few people asked about supplements. And again, I would consult with a plant-based registered dietitian or a plant-based doctor for your specific needs. But in general, on a plant-based diet that's either drastically reducing animal products or eliminating them, B12 is really the only supplement that you need to be concerned about. So I just take like, actually I'm on a prenatal vitamins, which I'm pretty sure that the B12 is in there, positive it's in there. But you could also just kind of get a B12 supplement from your local pharmacy. And I just found this on the Nutrition Institutes of Health website, and it kind of gives the stage of life and how much is recommended. So you can kind of base your supplement off of that. But again, I would consult with a dietitian if there's any specific needs for you. All right, on with the show. So throughout, I'd say April 15th was my plant-based vegan anniversary. It was the day 2 years ago that I went to a workshop that really opened my eyes. And since then, I've been to countless workshops and lectures, and I've met some really awesome people with some really amazing stories. So I asked 3 of them to talk a little today, because I think at the end of the day, facts can get a little overwhelming and almost like too much and kind of boring. Whereas stories are like, oh my God, like I can relate to that guy or I can relate to that woman. So I invited 3 people to speak today. And without further ado, let's get into them. So maybe Anthony, you're at the top of my list. Would you like to go first? Oops, sorry.
No problem.
Okay, great. All right.
I'm just going to switch. I'm going to share my screen because pictures tell thousands of words.
Okay, I'm going to mute
my. It says it's going to bump you. Okay. So I know you're muted, Terry, but let me know if you can't see my screen or if it's not working somehow. Okay. So thank you for having me, and thanks for, you've already given all the information, so it's really nice to follow in a presentation where we don't have to do that part. I get to really focus on my story. My name is Anthony Masiello. I am a board certified health and wellness coach, and I work on a lot of projects in the plant-based space. The most recent is called Plant-Based Telehealth, where we're helping to provide access to plant-based physicians for people all over the country. I like to talk a lot about weight loss, but I just wanted to clear up a couple of things before I start telling my story, because it is a weight loss story. But I want to know the reason why. I want everyone to understand the reason why I talk about weight loss, and that it's not about body shaming. It's not even about body image. It's really about what it means for overall health. So this is just a little slide that basically shows the normal trajectory, as Terry clearly showed with the maps as they were coloring in with the rates of obesity increasing over time. It's almost normal now for people at some point in their lives to become overweight, obese. That leads to other health complications like prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. The reason I talk about weight loss is because I want to help people catch their, I want to catch people on this point of the path so that they can change directions. Because we know that at the point where the only health concern or the only risk factor someone has is obesity or being overweight, we can almost always help them with diet, exercise, sleep, quit smoking, lifestyle intervention. By the time we get out here, there's less impact that we can have with lifestyle, and then you really do become dependent on the medical system. So that's the first reason. The second reason is, as Terry showed in the charts, this is also from the CDC, and this is showing the rate of obesity, where Terry showed us how the rates of obesity climbed so much in the US over that period of time. And then if you look at these lower three maps, this is also showing the rate of diabetes. And it's really following right behind obesity. So it doesn't mean that obesity itself causes diabetes, but what it means is however we're living, whatever's causing us to grow, I guess, more obese as a nation is also helping us to become more diabetic as a nation. And that's the second reason I like to talk about weight loss. The third, and this one just came out, this is actually, there was an NYU study that was done, and it found the largest US study of COVID-19 finds that obesity is the single biggest chronic risk factor in New York City's hospitalizations. And what that means is that if you get COVID-19 and you're obese, your risk of going to the hospital because of the disease is much greater than someone who is of a normal body weight. And then the fourth reason is because this was me. In 2005, I weighed 360 pounds. I had a 54-inch waist. I was on medication for high blood pressure. And I was just denied a 20-year term life insurance policy. And I was denied a 20-year term life insurance policy because I had a number of risk factors that basically told the insurance company that I wasn't going to live for another 20 years. And the reason I went for that policy is because my wife was pregnant with our second son. And that was really scary to me. I had been overweight my whole life. From about the fourth grade, I was obese, and I was kind of one of the two, what was known as one of the two fat kids at my school. I grew up in North Carolina, and there weren't a lot of obese people in the late 70s and early 80s when I was that age. So it became how I kind of identified myself. And I had tried to lose weight numerous times throughout my life. I tried almost every diet I could get my hands on, and I couldn't get anything to last. But, having this insurance company tell me that I wasn't going to live for 20 years as I was just starting my family, and I felt like life was just starting for me, it was highly motivating, and it really made me understand that I needed to give this another try. I needed to figure this out. And the best thing that did was that caused me to really look at my situation and understand what life was really like. It wasn't the happy-go-lucky. It wasn't the joking about myself. It wasn't, kind of just trying to downplay my situation. It was really the things that were important to me. Like when my wife and I took my older son, she was pregnant. We took my older son to the fair. And we were walking around the church fair that comes around in Clinton, New Jersey, right here where I live now. And I was holding my son in my arms, and we walked around the corner, and we saw a train ride. And he's 18 months old. I mean, and for new parents, as Terry's soon going to know, babies don't really do much for the first year, as far as give us feedback or show excitement. But around 18 months, my son was starting to show us excitement. And when we came around this turn and we saw this train ride, I mean, he was pointing at it and wiggling and squirming, and he was trying to get to it from my arms. So I knew he wanted to go for a ride. So we walked over there towards the train. And when we got close, you know, I put my arms, my thumbs under his arms, and I went to pull him off my chest to hand him to my wife, so that she could take him on the train ride. And he wouldn't let go of my shirt. And to me, you know, that gave me the feeling that he wanted me to take him on the ride. But the truth is, I would never fit. I mean, I'm 6'4", 360 pounds. I can barely fit on an airplane when I have to travel for work in an airplane seat. How in the world am I going to fit on a children's ride? So I gave my son to my wife, and eventually he forgot that he even had a dad, and he went to ride on the train. But then the attendant told me I had to move over and wait for them to get off the ride. And I looked down, and I was standing behind a metal fence, metal gate. And I was just thinking to myself, you know, is this the kind of father I'm going to be, you know, for the rest of these children's lives? And is this the kind of husband I'm going to be for my wife, where she really has to do all of these things? And I knew something had to change. So I didn't know exactly what to do, but I set a New Year's resolution, and I said, I'm going to lose 50 pounds this year. And I didn't have any other plan than keeping myself hungry and giving up sweets and soda. And I thought that would do it. After a couple of months, I actually had no results. I had not lost a single pound, keeping myself hungry, not having sweets or soda, but I kept looking for what to do. And I found, fortunately enough, I found Dr. Furman's book on Amazon. And the thing that I really liked about this book is it says right here in the pink bar, fast and sustained weight loss. And I was like, wow, that's what I wanted. But then when I looked in the comments and to see the things that people were saying about the book on Amazon, everyone talked about getting healthy. And I thought to myself, wow, I don't really just want to lose the weight. I really want to be healthy going forward. So I bought the book and I did exactly what it said. And what it says is you eat vegetables, fruits, beans, and a little bit of nuts and seeds, and nothing else. And it's as simple as that. So I started transitioning right away. By the time we did bring my second son home from the hospital, I was down 30 pounds. This is me down 30 pounds from where I was. And I just continued. Losing that first 30 pounds in a couple of months was incredibly motivating to me. I mean, it made me know that I really found something that was going to work for me. Just like Terry said, I was not counting calories. I was not measuring anything. I was just eating those whole, unrefined, unprocessed plant foods and almost nothing else. I continued for the rest of the year. By the end of 2006, I lost a total of 90 pounds. It completely blew away my goal of losing 50 pounds for the year. And I decided at that point I was going to start exercising. And I only say that here now because I want to be crystal clear that I lost 90 pounds without doing a single bit of exercising at all. I mean, we had a baby and a toddler at home. We didn't have a lot of extra time to do things. So it was all about what I was eating. And I'm not saying that exercise is bad, because I think exercise is incredibly important for good health. But as far as weight loss is concerned, it's not the number one thing that you need to concentrate on. Oops, that's my timer. Sorry. So I kept going. And in September of 2007, my weight loss stopped, and it stopped just as suddenly as it began. At that point in time, I had lost a total of 160 pounds. I got off all my medications, and I was able to get that life insurance policy in the preferred category. And that really gave me the confidence to know that not only did I lose the weight, but that I became healthy on the inside. And if you just look here, you know, my BMI went from a 44 down to a 24, 25. My blood pressure on medication went down from being in the danger zone to being ideal. My cholesterol, HDL, triglycerides, all these liver function tests, they all went from being very dangerous risk factors to all being near perfect. And the only thing that I changed was how I ate and how I lived my life. I actually got off all my medications during this process. So these columns here are now with no medications, where this column I was even medicated, and that's the best that they could do for me. So what really matters, though, is the quality of life improvement. And it's all the things that I can do now. And it's how I live and enjoy my time with my family. We do all kinds of things. And my stories now are completely different. This is 2 years later, where my older son is sitting in the back seat by himself. And this is me taking my younger son on the train ride, about the same age as when Evan went on that ride 2 years earlier with my wife. And I still don't fit very well on the train. I'm not gonna lie, I'm too tall. But you better believe I was as happy as could be to cram myself in that seat to sit and ride around with those boys. And we continue today. You know, we live a very active life with my family, and being a part of that it just means the world to me. And I share my story because I really think that's the power of plant-based nutrition. And I would like to encourage anyone who is interested in trying it or even going more plant-based, as Terry said, to just do it and just wait and see what happens. And I hope it helps you as much as it helped me. Thank you. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you. Oops. Awesome. Okay, I think I'm back. Mike, can you just check my screen for a second? Oh, wait, so we're not on a presentation, that's why. Awesome, yeah. When I asked Anthony to present today, I was like, you gotta tell the train story, because that just like made me cry. I went to a workshop early on in the year, I think in January, and I just found out I was pregnant. And so, you know, now these stories of just being healthy for your children, like I actually get it now. So I was like, yeah, tell the train story. Okay, so Richard, if you're ready, you could go next.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so you can take it away.
Yeah, let me share the screen first. I'm using both my laptop and my phone.
And then BJ, you're on deck. If anyone needs to stretch,
Yeah, now's a good time to do it while I get this going.
Okay, I actually meant to, putting this presentation together, it's a little outside my comfort zone. And so, you know, I had all these ideas of just how I wanted to form. At the end of the day, I said, whatever happens is going to happen as long as I get the information out as best as I possibly can. And I meant to start with some kind of like stretching and moving, because I know as a fitness instructor, after a workout, I feel like amazing and things just sink in better, and I can think clearer. So if you need to move and stretch a little bit, it definitely will be important to kind of process all this information. Okay, looks good, Richard. So you can take it away.
Okay. Well, first I want to say congratulations, Terry. I had no idea you were expecting. Yeah. Okay. So my journey started back in 2012. I was obese for probably 10 years. After I graduated college, I was getting more and more obese. I had a desk job, and I wasn't moving around much, and I loved food too much. I was a binge eater. I ate way too much food. You know, sometimes I would eat maybe a half a gallon of ice cream a day. It was really out of control, and my dieting efforts failed. I tried so many diets over the years, and all these gimmicky diets, nothing worked. Yeah, I also did go to the gym once in a while. You know, I wasn't working up a sweat like I should have, but still, even as Anthony was saying, it's not the exercise, it's the food. And I had no idea at the time. You know, I thought I could exercise my way back to health, but that wasn't the reality. So in the state of Connecticut, we have, I work for the state of Connecticut, and they changed the health insurance requirements back in 2012. The requirements were that you had to do a physical, and I hadn't had a doctor's appointment in years. If I had to see a doctor, maybe I went to the ER or something, but I had no primary physician. My doctor had long since retired, my childhood doctor, so I had to find a doctor. And looking back, I'm glad I I'm glad I chose to get the physical, because I could have just paid a higher premium. Somehow I just wanted to save money, and I think in the back of my mind I wanted to get healthy. So I went to the physical. Prior to the physical, I wanted to not be as bad as I could. So I had 2 months to prepare, and I was trying to diet ahead of time, but I was still morbidly obese by the time I saw the doctor. So he checked my blood pressure, did the lab work and everything, and he told me that not only was I morbidly obese, but he also told me that I was probably pre-diabetic, although the numbers were down. He wasn't so concerned about that as much as he was for my blood pressure. It was like maybe 150 over 100 or something. I don't remember what the numbers were, but it was really up there. And he gave me a few weeks and said he would recheck it. Maybe I was nervous or something. So he rechecked it, and it was up again. So he told me I'd have to go on medication. So I went and filled the meds, and I learned something about myself at that time, how stubborn I am. I did not want to be on meds for the rest of my life, and I hadn't really researched stories yet about plant-based eating, but somehow in my mind I knew there had to be a better way than meds. My parents were dependent on meds, so many family members, and I didn't want to be like that for the rest of my life. I had my dad who was probably on 10 different meds, and he's still on meds, and I can't imagine living that way and worrying about side effects and taking another pill because of the side effects of the other one. So I didn't want to live that way. So I called up my doctor. I did fill up the prescriptions, the one prescription, and I read the side effects, and I didn't want to go through that. I told him, if he would agree, can I just lose the weight first? And if my blood pressure comes down, can I avoid the medication? And he agreed. And so I consider that the start of my journey. After that, I think it was like March or April of that year, 2012, I saw an episode of Dr. Oz where he had Dr. Furman on. And let me show you, this is a picture of me back in 2012. Well, actually 2011, sorry. And I discovered The End of Heart Disease. I believe that was the book that came out when Dr. Oz was featuring Dr. Furman. And Dr. Furman spoke about health, and health was my priority, way more than the weight loss. Of course, the two work hand in hand together, but I really wanted to get healthy. So hearing Dr. Furman say I could do this without pills, it was just a matter of changing my diet. I was hooked that day. From that day on, I focused on getting the G-bombs, his greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. I have to say, of course, I've increased my diet span since then. I followed Dr. Greger's advice and other doctors, but I always try to incorporate somehow the G-bombs, my daily food intake. I always have a large salad, which he advises at least one large salad. It was Dr. Furman's advice that really woke me up. I don't know where I'd be if I didn't stumble upon that episode that day. And then, following that, Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, and his nutritionfacts.org was a huge resource for me. I like to research, and the internet, I feel like, it saved my life. And Dr. Greger's book and website saved my life. Any foods that Dr. Greger researches, increase my intake of the foods that he recommends, eliminate foods that he doesn't recommend. And it was his advice that helped me give up certain foods that I was addicted to. So him and Dr. Furman, they both were a huge influence. That first year, I just want to backtrack a little. I wasn't fully 100% plant-based. It took time to do that. I remember the first thing to go was beef. I loved red meat, and I gave it up that year. The following year, I had maybe one serving of beef. I remember it was a picnic at work, and I felt so sick the next day. So red meat was the first year. I also gave up aspartame. I was a big soda drinker. I believe what they say, that diet soda can make people obese, because I think they can drink more of it. And I used to drink it by 2 liters. And yeah, so I gave up soda the first year too, and that helped drop the weight. I think I lost 120 of the first of my 150-pound weight loss that first year. Took me within 12 months, I was down to 120 pounds. And unlike Anthony, I did exercise like a maniac the first year. I did do the treadmill. I remember doing it an hour at a time, just getting soaked on the treadmill. But I probably didn't have to work so hard either, because I did have the diet under control that year as well. But anyway, so after that, the other thing that influenced me to go completely plant-based, 100%, I'm like Terry, I'm vegan and plant-based. What the Health really changed my life. I know there's a lot of documentaries out there. That one really woke me up. I know there are people who like to doubt the science in it, but I think it was really well done. Showing how some of the poor communities have to live near these slaughterhouses and live in the filth, and it really opened my eyes. Just seeing the impact of the animals and the planet. So I'm not sure a year that film came out, but I did become 100% plant-based on September 6, 2016. I haven't had animal products, at least knowingly, since then. And another shout out to a vegan bodybuilder, Robert Cheek, because I had a lot of loose skin because of the weight loss. And I thought muscle would really help tighten some of the skin. So he was 100% vegan and a bodybuilder. And I thought, here I was going to a personal trainer, and he's telling me to up my whey protein powder, and he would tell me to have 200 grams of protein a day. He was crazy. And even my doctor said, don't listen to him. That's way too much. Got to worry about your kidneys. So I didn't listen to my trainer. I listened to Robert Cheek, and gave up all animal products. I researched the best diets. I continued with Dr. Furman's eating plan and Dr. Greger's advice, and I've never looked back. I felt better than ever. I had a lot of energy prior to 2016, but it was like even more energy after that. It's like I felt more awake. My productivity increased at work. It just felt amazing. And I never wanted to go back to my old eating habits after that. So here I am 3.5 years later. I did my first half marathon last year. I've been doing a lot of running. I plan to do a marathon. I was going to do it this year, but because of COVID-19, my half marathon, the schedule for June, was changed to September. So most likely I'll be training for a full marathon for next year after my half in the fall. So I'm still active every day. I was going to the gym 5 days a week prior to this virus outbreak. But now I bought a set of weights at Walmart maybe a month ago. I've been doing the weights less because I find I have less time now, believe it or not. I'm working at home, but people are bothering me day and night, so I can't, I can't work out like I was prior to being in my office. But I do make sure I get at least 10,000 steps a day with my watch. I do wear the Apple Watch, which I highly recommend to people. That keeps me motivated. I stand at least 1 minute every hour if I'm at the computer, because my watch will remind me to get up. It's time to get up. So, so I credit the Apple Watch, the documentaries I mentioned, and Dr. Furman, Dr. Greger, and all the many other doctors, plant-based doctors out there who helped me with my journey. My advice to those out there considering a plant-based diet, just dive into it. Maybe don't eliminate too many foods yet, but increase your vegetable and fruit intake, and you'll feel fuller, and you'll want to give up the other foods. I think it'll be easier to give up those other foods because the veggies are so filling. I have a huge appetite, and by eating so many veggies, it crowds out my belly, so I don't have to eat the ice cream and other foods I used to crave. So my advice is to just dive right in, eating the fruits and veggies, and I think you'll find that it's easier to eliminate foods after that. So that's all I have for now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard. It was funny, you mentioned G-bombs, and I feel like it's, and I don't mean to like exclude anybody and have like, plant-based people have their own lingo. But again, I've kind of been in this scene for about 2 years. And when I was newly in the scene and just kind of like learning a little bit more about it, people would drop these acronyms or these doctors' names. And I'm like, who is that? I don't know what that is or who that is. What are G-bombs? So when Richard mentioned that, it's an acronym that stands for greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. And I remember I was at this block party, believe it or not, and I ran into this gentleman, one of those kind of older gentlemen that just talk a lot. So he was talking. And my mind was kind of like somewhere else. And then he dropped G-bombs. He said he was talking about his health, or unfortunately, I think his wife passed away. And he said, do you know what the key to good health is? And I was like, oh God, just gonna tell me something crazy. And he said G-bombs. And I'm like, I know what G-bombs are. That's a Dr. Furman thing. And then we got talking. So it's kind of funny if you feel overwhelmed with any phrases or words or doctors' names or books or references, just take it one at a time. It'll all kind of come together soon enough, I promise you. All right, so we have BJ, who's gonna also speak about her plant-based journey. And without further ado, if you're ready.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me fine?
Yes. Do you have a screen to share, or are you gonna talk?
I will. I just want to start with that one right now.
Okay.
So unlike Anthony and Richard, I don't have really a presentation. I am not an educator, or my job is not anything to do with this way of eating. I am a commercial interior designer. I am still working full-time through this, and I have a 10-year-old son, and he's home schooling on a computer. So plus we have 5 pets, and I have a husband, and so my time, I've been very busy all throughout this time. So I'm just going to tell you about my story, and I see that there's a lot of women on here, and I think maybe some of you can relate to me. I started this journey about 8 years ago when I was 42 years old. I had, at that point when I was 42 years old, I was at my heaviest weight again in my life. I had was up at 185, and I'm only 5'2". At that time, and when I was 42 years old, I had lost 60 pounds 6 different times in the past 30 years of my life. And I did every diet there was, from Weight Watchers. There was a program in the late 80s called Lean Line. I did the Fed and Thin pills in the late 90s. I also, when I was 42 years old, I was doing the MetaFast diet, which is a diet program where you buy their protein shakes and bars and whatever meals you add hot water to, and it becomes a little meal that was like the size of a fist, and that was your meal. Like Richard stated about being a binge eater, or I learned that I was a volume eater, that eating a piece of food that the size of my fist wasn't gonna hold me over. And at that point of my life, I never was a fruit and vegetable eater because I never knew how to eat them or how to cook them. I always learned either to make a small piece of chicken and, eat a small amount of vegetables. And usually I just bought frozen vegetables and would heat them up and eat a small 1 cup, because, Weight Watchers at that time, they were always having you measure even your vegetables and fruits. And I understand today they don't, which is great. And that's for a reason. So at age 42, I watched my sister-in-law lose 85 pounds eating what I thought was a vegan diet. And she had come to visit us, and she stayed for a week, and she was adamant that she was going to make food for us every day. And she was cooking these things, and I'm like, wow, if I could eat this every day and lose weight, I'll do it. And so she was so happy because she's been trying to tell me that for the past few years. And she watched me drink these protein shakes from Medifast and these bars. And, I was only going to the bathroom like every 2 to 3 days, but I thought that was normal. So she left, and then my husband and I, and at that point she made me watch Forks Over Knives, and she and I watched that together. And at that same time, my husband was in another room. I think he was putting our son to bed, and he was listening to Dr. Greger's top leading causes of death and how they can be cured by eating a plant-based diet. And so my husband and I, got together again at that point, and I said to him, I think I want to be vegetarian. And he goes, oh, I think I want to be vegan. And I didn't even know what the difference was at that point. I mean, at 42 years old, 8 years ago, I was like, okay, we can figure this out. And so I jumped in on Facebook, looking at some of the pages. I found Engine 2, and I was watching the posts. And, I didn't really understand exactly what I should be eating. And I think I got myself confused because I was trying to follow so many different people. And I actually gained all the weight back my first year of trying to be vegan, all the weight back that I had lost from Medifast, because I was eating an abundance amount of nuts and seeds and lots of pasta, and because I'm a volume eater. And like I said, I'd never bought fruits and vegetables prior to this way of eating. I was still looking at processed things, and I was still drinking a lot of wine, chips. And so that was my first year, and I gained all my weight back. And then I was still adamant on trying to make this work. And my husband was very adamant. This is how he wanted to eat. We're both older parents. And I can tell you one of the things about eating a plant-based diet, it's not going to stop the grays from coming in. So I'm going to be 50 in 2 weeks. And this being quarantined has proven that going to the salon is not going to happen. So I think I'm just going to let the grays grow in after all this. So anyway, so 3 years of trying to eat vegan. And by that time, I had not lost any of the weight, and I was still just eating a lot of pasta, nuts and seeds and stuff. And I said to my husband, I don't want to do this. It's not working for me. And I even went to our doctor for a checkup. And I mean, I still hadn't had any health issues. And my doctor, who I didn't realize was plant-based, and I said to him, I'm trying to be vegan or plant-based or vegan. And he says, well, your vegan is not the same as my vegan. And I didn't understand, and actually was a little offended when he said that, but it actually made me realize I'm doing this wrong. And that's when I discovered a woman, her name is Chef AJ, and she was teaching the principles of calorie density, of eating foods as the calorie density chart. And I guess I should have had that chart up here, and I'm sorry that I didn't. But I'm going to put on my before picture of when I started. So this is me in 2015 at my heaviest weight. And starting in January of 2016, I started listening to Chef AJ's program of calorie density, of eating everything what she says is like fruits and vegetables and unrefined complex carbs, and just eat those 3 categories of foods at Librium. And it really helped me to start eating more volumes of vegetables. And so to also, and that's my after picture. And this was 2 years after that. So at age 42, I was never an athlete. I never really was an exerciser. I did have a 2-year period of time when I had lost weight with Weight Watchers, and I was cycling. And that's how I met my husband, was riding a bike in a group. And but that was it. I was never an athlete in school. I was never a runner. I never did any kind of sports whatsoever. I wasn't even one to go out and play, you know, whatever. So when I lost the weight, eating a whole food plant-based diet, I didn't exercise really that much at all during the first few months. I have to tell you, the first month alone that I started eating just all fruits, vegetables, and unrefined complex carbs, and unrefined complex carbs meaning things like beans and rice and potatoes. That first month alone, I lost 20 pounds. And it just goes to show that, and I wasn't exercising at all. And so it just goes to show how poorly I was eating a vegan diet prior to that. So that first month, losing 20 pounds on a whole food plant-based diet was just an amazing thing. And my energy level went up, that I started to walk around the neighborhood, and my neighbors started noticing me losing weight and walking, and they were all happy. And one neighbor offered to take me with her to a boot camp class. So I got into boot camp, and then she wanted me to start running with her. Well, I was scared to run my first 5K, but then this picture is when I did a race out in Colorado. Anthony showed his picture with his family finishing the finish line, but this is making it to the top of the race. So, and I still run today, and I was actually trying to train for a 50K race for my 50th birthday, but it got canceled because of the obviously the situation we're in. And so that's been put on hold to the fall. So I'm taking a break right now and just doing yoga and letting my body recover. And I'll start out training again later this summer. Yeah, so anyway, that's my talk on how I lost my 65 pounds eating a whole food plant-based diet.
Thank you, BJ. So I actually just recently met BJ. Anthony suggested her story would be appropriate for this presentation, and we found out we have the same birthday. So I'm like, it's perfect. It's meant to be that you speak on this, because I also have a birthday coming up in 2 weeks. And I also really like that you touched upon vegan versus like a healthy plant-based diet. So I just want to stress that for optimal health, we really want to focus on unrefined whole plant foods. So I find myself sometimes in the middle, especially now that I feel like I've kind of become a more ethical vegan. You know, if I see a new vegan plant-based burger on the menu or something, it's like I want to support it because I want the demand for vegan items to be there. But I truly know that those aren't the healthiest options. So if health, whether it's weight loss or more energy, or preventing or treating a chronic disease, just know that it is more whole plant-based foods that are optimal for your health. Okay, so we kind of went through the what and the why, and we had some great testimonials to show that this is possible for normal people. Sometimes you'll see like in the documentaries or in the reviews or magazine articles with all these testimonials, and they don't seem real, but there's real people making these transitions every day that are just having such success on it. Not to say it's super easy, but every small little bit is a success. And to kind of put that into a little bit more of just some basic tips, I put together like 10 things that I gathered from Anthony, Richard, BJ, my own plant-based journey, and I just reached out to some other groups on Facebook that I'm in that I know people who've transitioned. Like, what are just some simple basic things that anybody could really start today? So I have just 10 things that I want to go through, which will then conclude this. So hang on for 10 more little nuggets.
We lost your audio.
Oh, can you hear me now?
No.
I hear her.
Yeah. Somebody.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Can somebody else not hear me? If that was Richard, you're frozen, so maybe it's you. Yeah, somebody just said, yeah, I can hear you're fine. Okay, so I don't want to say I'm going to go through this quickly, but at the same time, I want to make sure that you all have time to get outside in the sun, because I'm in my kitchen right now and I'm like freezing, and I just can look at the sunshine, and I can probably tell most of us want to get out there. So tip number 1, if at all possible, try not to obsess over nutrients individually. And what I mean by that is, especially being like a fitness person, I was basically trained to think like protein, protein, protein. I need my protein to be an athlete and to be strong and to have muscles. Once I really understood that protein, as well as all nutrients, are available in all types of plant foods, it was a little bit easier to kind of let go of being so hung up on one nutrient and being like, all right, eating is kind of like a symphony, if you want to kind of put it that way. So I know, I was going to put that in there. I have no musical background whatsoever, but my husband is a music teacher, so I don't claim to know too much about music, but I assume a symphony is full of a variety of instruments for a reason, right? They all kind of work together and it sounds beautiful and it's wonderful. But, you know, once you start really just focusing on one instrument, you kind of lose the symphony piece of it. So think of eating like a symphony. You want to have a variety and not obsess over one thing and nitpick and here and there. It just gets a little too confusing. Number 2, making vegetables most of your meal. So like we had pasta the other night. I made kind of like a vegan chow mein, and we made it with like some kind of whole wheat spaghetti because we didn't have chow mein noodles. But I made sure that like most of the dish was vegetables, like literally most of the bowl was vegetables. And then it had a little bit of pasta mixed in there. So that's not only going to help you feel fuller, it's just going to make your dish more healthy in general. So trying to make most of your meals vegetables. So when somebody asks, hey, what's for dinner? You can answer with the vegetables first, rather than, you know, chicken or beef or fish or whatever. If you choose for those things to be on your meals, that's your choice, but making it more of a condiment. So if you're still going to incorporate animal products, I'm thinking of them more as a condiment rather than the main dish. That's a really kind of good way to think about your meals. Number 3, try to ditch the salt as best as possible. So, you know, the salt shakers that we see on the tables, if you have one on your dining room table, get rid of it, because it's only going to like just keep that habit going of you put salt on your food. This was a good recommendation from Richard. He said, learn how to cook with spices, and I can't agree more. So for me, I love this. It's a 21 season salute from Trader Joe's. It's just one that I found that I like. My husband doesn't like it, so it's fun when we try to make meals. It's like, I want to put this on everything. And he actually prefers, we make this, it's called Savory Spice Blend. It's a recipe in the How Not to Die cookbook, and I can give you that recipe. But basically, it's a spice blend that he prefers. So when we bake tofu, he likes to put this on his tofu, or, you know, any kind of dish that you're not sure what to use. Having a go-to spice blend is really helpful. And we also do like a jar of taco seasoning. So we make our own taco seasoning that doesn't have salt in it, which is nice. All right, number 4, to kind of less complicate things, think about things that you already eat, the meals that you already have, and just try to veganize them. And what I mean by veganize is like, take tacos. If you have tacos once a week or on a regular basis, just think about, okay, instead of ground beef or ground chicken or ground turkey, just substitute that with beans or lentils. We used our taco seasoning and we ground up tofu or tempeh, and it's still a taco. It just has, the base of it is more plant-based. So there's also Lots of sauces. We make this really good Alfredo sauce, but the base is ground up cashews, or, we put them in a blender, the recipe put in a blender. So we have Alfredo sauce, but the base is not, heavy milk or cream. It's a nut. So it's cashews. I used to love like eggs for breakfast, but now I make tofu eggs instead of regular eggs. And even like things like pizza, if you're still, want to have your pizza Fridays with your family, we do that once in a while. But when we order pizza from the pizzeria, we get it with no cheese on there, and we make sure we put lots of vegetables on it. So, a really good pizzeria that can make a really good crust, you won't even be missing the cheese. So you can still have those things that you feel like you just may need right now, if you just kind of tweak them a little bit to make them a little bit more plant-based. All right, number 5. Another helpful thing for us was learning how to cook or saute without oil. So oil, like I said in the presentation, is plant-based technically, and I know there's all this kind of like media attention how healthy oil can be, or it's avocado oil or olive oil or whatever, coconut oil. But oil is very calorie dense and it's very high in fats, and there's really no need for it. We should be getting the oil in the whole food form. So learning how to cook and saute without oil was a real game changer. It didn't really make or break the meal. It was just sauteing onions. So I could do that with vegetable broth instead of oil, and it was the same dish. Some simple swaps that you can do. So like non-dairy milk, that's probably another easy switch that you could do. There's lots of different types. A lot of people that I've talked to say they like oat milk. They think that's the closest thing to regular milk, if that's what you prefer. We do almond and soy milk just because it's by habit. I haven't really needed to change it up at all, but I'm sure if you particularly like a certain taste or texture, you can experiment with different plant-based milks. And in addition to plant-based milks, there's a lot of plant-based dairy alternatives as well. Again, kind of getting into a little bit of the area of being processed, but if you're kind of want to get a little bit more plant-based in some areas, plant-based yogurts or non-dairy yogurts, non-dairy cheeses are options out there, as well as whole grains. So basically for pasta, one simple tip could be just getting whole wheat pasta. This might be better doing more whole grains, but this is, again, just trying to make this as basic and as easy as possible. This is literally just picking up the whole wheat kind instead of the regular, more refined kind. So this is like a simple way that you can just add more whole grains. And if you really want to kind of get into more whole grains, trying to cook basic rice dishes, but using things like farro or quinoa could also be helpful too. So experimenting with whole grains, transitioning whatever grains that you do eat more to the whole form options. All right, number 7, stock up on plant-based foods that last long, especially during this time. I mean, not a lot of us are going out to the grocery store probably as often as we used to. So stocking up on canned beans. All right, canned beans, they last a long time, as well as like dry beans. If you're okay with cooking dried beans, you can do that too, but there's nothing wrong with canned. And frozen. So a lot of people will ask, like, are frozen fruits and vegetables healthy? Yeah, as long as there's not anything added to them, which most likely there isn't. So frozen fruits and vegetables are fantastic. And you might have a preference of consistency and things like that. Like my steamed broccoli I prefer steamed broccoli rather than like the frozen broccoli that I put in the microwave. But again, it's there just so you have it. So you're not left with, okay, my only option is to order out. So just having these things in your home, you're more likely to eat them. All right, that was number 7. I'm going to test you on this. Number 8, when in doubt, especially when you're just starting off, it gets a little overwhelming, or could get overwhelming, like, oh, is this healthy? Is this not healthy? I'm not really sure. Just try to ask yourself, compared to what? So like the old-fashioned or the steel-cut oats for like oatmeal, this is going to be better than like the Quaker oat packets that have like sugar in them and they're already kind of like flavored. But are those Quaker oat packets better than a bacon, egg, and cheese? Yeah. So trying to just find those options that, okay, maybe it's not the healthiest, but if it's the most readily available, it's what's kind of you're able to do at this time. Trying to just ask your question, what's the healthier option, especially going out to eat. Going out to eat is kind of like a danger zone for a lot of people who are maybe trying to move more towards a healthy diet, but there are better options than others at restaurants. So for example, the refined grained pasta with marinara sauce and a side of steamed vegetables is gonna be better than the steak dinner. So just trying to find those, okay, what's the best option I have available at this time is a good way to think about it when you're starting off. Number 9, this is something that helped my husband and I kind of get started. I was a terrible cook before this, and actually I almost find that as a blessing because I didn't have to worry about relearning how to cook. I just had to learn how to cook in general. So learning how to cook in general, we used a delivery service, like a meal delivery service. We started with Blue Apron. We did the vegetarian service. So like we got like 3 meals delivered, all the ingredients, and it would just have recipe cards and we'd learn how to cook. And then we switched to Purple Carrot, which is all plant-based. And it was just interesting to figure out, okay, how can I make a meal out of lentils? Or how can I make a meal out of beans? Or have the main thing be tofu instead of what we were used to? So if that's an option for you, that could be, maybe just do it for a month or 2 just to kind of get used to how to cook. A couple weeks, yeah. Sun baths, I was trying to just research, at least in the New Jersey area, what meal prep services do plant-based. And I just did this very quickly. So it was like Purple Carrot, Sun Basket, and I couldn't find too much else, but I also didn't really look that hard. So if you're looking for something, I can definitely help you out. And the last one, number 10, this is probably the biggest thing, is making it as easy as possible for yourself in your own home. So you can't really control what the restaurant offers or what your work cafeteria offers or what's going to be at a family member's house or whatever, but in your own home, trying to control it as best as possible. And that might look like cutting fruit, prepping, cutting, and washing, and really just getting ready all fresh fruits and vegetables so they're easily accessible. And again, that depends on your schedule and your time and things like that. But if it's worth it, you'll hopefully find time for it. So, when I'm hungry for a snack, it's always going to be easy to open up a bag of crackers or chips or something. And you might argue you don't even have those in the house anyway. So I would probably just tell myself that. But in general, it's easier to open up a bag of chips than, I don't know, slice up this pineapple. Like, I'm not going to feel like doing that when I just want a snack. But if this pineapple was already, and it smells so good, was already cut up, chopped, freshly cut in my refrigerator, that would be a lot easier to eat. So trying to make it as easy as possible for yourself to eat is definitely going to be helpful too. So I will email all this kind of stuff that I went quickly through to you, but hopefully you could just kind of like pick 1 or 2 things that maybe you can start today. If you do all 10, fantastic. But I think there's at least a couple things on that list that most of us can at least incorporate fairly easily. All right, so I have a couple more slides and then I'm just gonna kind of wrap up. So let me get back to my presentation really quick. I'd say maybe about another 10 minutes. Here we go. Okay, so we're done with testimonials. Okay, so references. Can you help me for a second? I just want to make sure that people can see this. You're presenting? Yeah, sorry. I'm going to share my screen one last time. Okay, here we go. Right here? Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to present just a couple more slides with resources because this can be very overwhelming. And it's like, all right, what do I do now? I kind of want to transition. I want to start adding more plant-based foods in. So some references, if you're curious, are here. Okay, so if you're in the area, I started a Facebook group called Plant-Based Vegans of Union County, And it's just, again, a group that's really no major agenda. It's just to share resources and recipes and, you know, just to kind of connect with people in this particular area. The All Saints Episcopal Church that Susanna was talking about before, they have a community wellness center Facebook page, so you can join that as well. Anthony, as well as a plant-based doctor, have started Healthy Human Revolution. So that's another Facebook group you can join, and they do live. I think it's weekly. You can correct me if I'm wrong. They do like live videos, and it's a plant-based doctor actually speaking herself. So it's really cool, really great to get information from people like that. And then if you're interested in more of a vegan lifestyle, there's Vegan in New Jersey is a great Facebook group as well. Documentaries, The Game Changers, if you haven't seen that, it's fantastic. I personally love it because being in the fitness scene, I love that they can show, and James Cameron was the director, so you know it's good. I love that they can just show how like strong you can be on a plant-based diet. What the Health, Richard mentioned that before, and BJ mentioned Forks Over Knives. So those are great documentaries, all on Netflix. Website references, nutritionfacts.org. That's Dr. Michael Greger. And it's a fantastic resource of like less than 5-minute videos on any nutrition topic that you can think of. Like, I don't know, like it's escaping me right now, but basically any nutrition topic that you can think of is on nutritionfacts.org. PCRM, that stands for the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. I love that resource. And forksoverknives.com as well. And there's recipes on all of those 3 websites. Okay, podcasts, if you're a podcast type of person, the Physicians Room is the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. It's their podcast. Nutrition Rounds by Dr. Danielle Bellardo is great. The Plant Yourself podcast by Howard Jacobson is great. And the Rich Roll podcast. So again, a little overwhelming of information. So just maybe pick 1 or 2 that you want to focus on and see if it kind of resonates with you at all. Let's see. Okay, book references. If you're a reader, How Not to Die and How Not to Diet by Dr. Michael Greger are fantastic. Eat to Live, Anthony mentioned that one, and End of Heart Disease, Richard mentioned that one. Those are great by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. Your Body in Balance and The Cheese Trap by Dr. Neil Bernard are fantastic. And if anybody has like issues with hormones, Your Body in Balance, that's kind of what it covers. The research about nutrition and how it links to the hormones in our body. The China Study by T. Colin Campbell is a fantastic reference. And BJ mentioned Chef AJ. I met her at one of the workshops I went to, and she's fantastic. She used to be like a comedian, so she has this like really awesome way of presenting information. But her book is fantastic, The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss. All right. The hardest thing, I think, is trying to find doctors who are supportive of this lifestyle, because in medical school, doctors aren't taught nutrition. And that's not to say that they don't know what they're talking about when you go see them for, you know, for being sick. They're obviously, doctors are very educated and they do really hard, demanding work in medical school, but nutrition isn't really part of that. So if you have a doctor that's maybe not supportive of this or doesn't think that diet matters much for chronic diseases or overall health, you might want to look for someone who's a little bit more educated. Anthony mentioned before, and I'm so happy he and Dr. Lori Marbas, I believe her last name is, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, they started plant-based telehealth. And that's fantastic. It's the second one here because, you know, you might not have a plant-based doctor in your area. So this is telehealth where you could see a doctor essentially through a screen. So basically what we're doing now, but obviously it's on a platform that's HIPAA compliant and much more secure. So don't worry, you're not going to Zoom call with a doctor, but just know that there are things are those things are out there. Ethos Health Farm, it's in Long Valley, New Jersey. It's a fantastic place. Dr. Ron Weiss is amazing. My husband and I went there for their open house a couple months ago, and it's just a fantastic place to go to. Dr. Fuhrman, we mentioned him a couple times. His practice is in Flemington, New Jersey. So New Jersey is having all these like hot spots, which is fantastic. Be Well Be Well is in Morristown, but they also have locations with certain services around New Jersey as well. Marissa Sweeney, she started there's like a lot of vegan in New Jersey, or I should say Veg Fest events. And again, that's a little bit more towards like being vegan, but it is a great way to show that the plant-based movement is really getting a little bit more momentum. So Marissa Sweeney, she started that, but she also has her own wellness center called Be Well. And she's a registered dietitian, and there's other people there that I would trust being very educated on plant-based nutrition. I also met a dietitian through Summit Medical Group. Her name is Mildred Bentler. So we can look her up if you're interested, and especially if you're in Summit Medical Group already. And there's something called the Ornish program. I know someone whose mother went through it. And there's a program in New Jersey. I forget exactly what hospital it's out. But that's kind of more for chronic diseases and heart disease as well. So you could always look up the Ornish program if you're interested in that. All right, to the cookbook raffle. My husband had one job, and his job was to make sure he wrote down all the participants and put them in like little pieces of paper. So I love this book because it keeps things very simple and obviously very inexpensive. So the lucky winner, do you want to pick it? Yeah. All right. The lucky winner for our cookbook raffle is, I told him not to put any of the presenters in there. Catherine Perez. So again, maybe you can, let's see if I can find you, or you can send me an email or something. So Catherine Perez, you won the book. I'll either, if you're local, I could drop it off at your house, or I can mail it to you as well. So I have a list of all the people and your emails. So hopefully I will find you. All right, getting close to the end. And lastly, I mentioned before, my birthday is coming up. And last year, I gave everybody the gift of going vegan for a day. So whether that means like super healthy plant-based vegan, or you just want to try out some vegan options at your local restaurant, I'm going to be in touch and encourage you, maybe just for May 1st and for BJ as well, to try vegan for a day and maybe just see how it feels. And then after that, since May 1st is the start of a month, I'm going to try to start a group and maybe do like a 21-day vegan kickstart. And that will be a program through the Physicians Committee. So there's kind of a program that's already set up. So it's going to be kind of pretty easy to follow. So without, I think that's the end of my presentation. So let me bring it back to whoever else is here. And I really just want to thank everybody for joining and sticking with the presentation. And hopefully you learned a little bit more than you knew an hour and a half ago. If this is information that you already know, because I'm looking at who's here, and I'm like, oh, that person already knows what I was talking about. So does that person. But maybe just kind of give you just a maybe better understanding of the information to go out and start talking to other people about it. This is definitely a little bit outside my comfort zone, but the information is just way too important that I just need to suck it up and just learn how to public speak a little bit better, just in order to really get this information out. So I'm so thankful for you for joining me. Susanna, do you want to close with anything? Oops, sorry.
Don't do anything. I'm unmuted. I would love to say thank you again. I can't think of a more important time for us to be concentrating on what's really going to improve our health and our immunity. And you know, it's amazing to me that when I do get to the grocery store around this time, you know, while we're going through this, the produce section has been untouched. Like, I'm like, don't you know you could have a lot more help if you were eating whole, unpressed? But anyway, I want to keep doing this. I don't know how long we're going to be in this situation, but this works. And having the amazing PowerPoints and these testimonials, I just shared on Facebook how amazing this has been. And I did tell everybody, if you weren't able to catch it, it is being recorded, and I think we'll be able to share it. But I want to keep doing this. And if there are people here that were either presenters with Terry this afternoon, or people who are interested in cooking and sharing recipes, it is so relatively easy to do this on Facebook Live or even through the Zoom format. You just set it up and people can watch and type in questions and things like that, or suggest recipes. I would love for more and more people to be able to share not just their story, but how to do this in a really, I'm a person that I have to see it being done and get good ideas. And the forksOverKnives.com has great recipe finder. I mean, you type in the ingredients that are in your house and they tell you what you can make. It's super, super helpful, but it's even more helpful when you see real people that are not professional TV personalities saying, look, this doesn't work and I'll tell you why, or this absolutely worked, but I had to tweak it this way. Please let me know on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, or I gave the tag, the Facebook handle for us. If you want to find me on Community Wellness Center and say, hey, I would love to host a Sunday afternoon program, obviously this is something people want. So however we can keep this going, I want to be here to help. Thank you, Terry, for coming up with this. And thank you to all of the presenters who gave such captivating, convincing stories. It was great.
Awesome.
That's all.
Thank you, Susanna. You're so well spoken. You must be a pastor or something.
I get that a lot.
And yes, I do want to give a big thank you to Anthony, BJ, and Richard for their stories. And again, their stories, at least all three of them, these ones kind of included a weight loss story. But I also want to just encourage anyone, even if you're not looking to lose weight, it's not just a weight loss diet. It is really just a healthy living diet. Just kind of for you to live and to operate at your most optimal level is just feeding yourself the most optimal foods that you possibly can. So if you maybe don't resonate with a weight loss story, I mean, I switched and I feel fantastic, and I didn't really have any weight loss needs or anything, but I just feel better. And I think that's another thing to kind of focus on as well. Depending on what your health goals are, you most likely can achieve them by improving your diet. So I will email everybody a little follow-up just with maybe my 10 tips, contacts for the presenters if they're okay with, with talking a little bit more with you if you resonated with them. Obviously Susanna's information as well. And I think that's about it. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you so much for joining. And again, if it's sunny outside, get outside. All right. Bye, everybody.